Hello, this is Daniel. Today, I'm going to focus on defining domain-specific intent. So, let's go into the exercise 1. Responding to hours of operation request. Chit-chat interactions are necessary to make our chatbot more present and human-like. However, what makes the chatbot actually useful is its ability to answer domain-specific questions, that is, business-related questions. We defined intent for people inquiring about hours of operation and addresses of our fictional florist chain, and even created an entity to be able to provide location-specific answers. However, much like the chit-chat intents alone don't offer responses to customers. We'll need to create nodes to handle these two business-specific intents. So let's create the parent node. So we'll start by creating a node for hours of operation. First, from your dialog section, click on the Add Node button. Click. This will create an empty node just below the first node in the dialog. If the node was created elsewhere in the dialog, you know by now how to move it just below the welcome node. Uh, if I am gonna give you a hint, to find the option in the three-dotted More Options menu for that node. Right, the second, set the node name to Hours of Operation. Hours of Operation, yeah. And use hours info for the node condition. Setting. Node, right, and yeah, response. Okay. Node condition. Assistant. Yeah, you don't need to. None will be shown to customize for this ambiguation, so use something descriptive. Okay, and here, hours info. This will ensure that the node will be executed when the user is inquiring about shop hours. Right, and third, in the response, enter mm, okay, our hours of operations are listed on app as example dot org dot hours. Hours page. Finish. Notice how HTML code is allowed in responses, enabling us to provide more interactive and useful test your answers. Later, when you test this link, you will be able to click on it and land on a sample page. If you were to get an error instead, consider replacing the double quote with a single quote in the HTML above. Next, close the node. Yeah, and head over to the try it out panel to test that it works by asking like, when is your uh, Vancouver store open? Then our hours operation list. Okay, I think it works. This location, Vancouver. Location, Vancouver. Mm. It should hit the hours of operation node and give you its response as shown like this. This works and it provides a somewhat useful answer to the user, assuming we are pointing them to a page with the right information listed. However, it feels not very smart. After all, the user asked us about a specific location. We even detected it with the location entity here, as well as the system entity, and then proceeded to ignore it, opting instead for a generic answer. We can do better than that. Close the try it out panel to gain some breathing room as we work on the dialogue. Okay. In order to handle this case properly, we will have to consider three possible scenarios. What is it? Mm, one in which a location is specified and it's one of our locations. A second one in which the city is specified, but we don't have a location. And a third one in which the user just asks about hours of operation in general without indicating a city. In the early days of Watson Assistant, before more powerful features were introduced, this scenario would be handled with child nodes. So we'll use child nodes here, and I will show you the more advanced alternatives later on this course. Okay, we'll use our current node to capture the hours of operation request and then jump to the child nodes to decide how to handle the request on the basis of the specific location information that was or wasn't provided. By the way, as the complexity of your dialog grows, you might have a hard time finding which node executed the response you are seeing during troubleshooting. To help you out, you can click on the map pin icon next to the response. Mm, like this. Huh? And the current node will be highlighted for you. Here, highlighted. Okay, create our location and child node. The first thing you have to do is to delete the response section from our hours of operation node by clicking on the trash bin icon in the assistant response section. Delete. Don't be afraid. We do that because we don't want this parent node to provide the answer. We let the child nodes decide what's the right response. Okay? And close the now responseless node. Using the More Options menu for the Hours of Operation menu, select the Add Child Node option. Add Child Node. As shown in here. Okay. This creates the first child node. We'll use it for the case of the user providing us a city for which we have a flower shop. So go ahead and name it our locations. Set the condition to add location. As we want to execute this node only if the user is inquiring about hours of operation for one of our locations. As a reminder, a child node is only executed if the parent node's condition was true, since we typically skip or jump to child nodes from the parent nodes, or in the much less common case of another node jumping to it. In our dialog, if we are executing these child nodes, we can be certain about two conditions regarding the user input. The first one, the intent will be hours info, because the parent node must have been executed to jump to this child node. The second thing is the input will contain the location entity, since that's the condition for this node to be executed. Knowing this allows us to provide very specific responses. Okay? Technically, we haven't made the parent hours of operation jump to its first child, our locations yet. Fear not, we will do so as soon as we are finishing setting up these child nodes. Right? We need to we need a way to offer a different response for each city. So we need to enable multiple conditioned responses. To do so, click on the Customize link within our locations child node. Scroll all the way to the bottom and switch on multiple conditioned responses and click Apply. Okay. You will notice that now we have the ability to attach a condition to each response like this. Go ahead and create a series of responses, one for each day, each city. If assistant recognizes column, you will want to enter the specific city. Like a location, Toronto, and in the respond with the hours of our fictional flower shop location. IG, our Toronto store is open Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. except statutory holidays. Mhm. Mm. Location. Like, location. Toronto. Our Toronto store is open Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. except statutory holidays. Okay, and notice. Okay, location Montreal. Our Montreal store and location Calgary. Our Calgary store and location Vancouver. Okay. Yeah. It's worth not noting that if the hours of operations were the same for all locations, we could have saved the trouble of switching to multiple condition responses and simply included location in our response, i.e., our location store is open Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. except statutory holidays. This would automatically output the detected entity value back to the user in the response. So, when inquiring about Calgary, the user would receive the response. Our Calgary store is open Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. except statutory holidays. Of course, if stores have different hours of operation, we need to opt for the multiple response approach like we did here. Close our locations node by clicking on X in the top corner. Hmm? Skip the user input and evaluate the child nodes. Now that we have our child nodes defined, we need to set the jump from each parent node. In other words, we need to make sure that the parent node, i.e. hours of operation, hands up control to the child nodes. We'll jump to the first node, and if the condition for that node is false, we'll continue evaluating other child nodes that we'll define in a moment until one child node's condition is met and that child node is finally executed. Select the hours of operation nodes, and you'll notice that the then assistant shoot section is set to wait for reply. This is not what you want, and I want. The user has already provided us with the question, and we haven't responded yet since this node has no response. Change the section of hours operation to skip user input. This will hand off the execution to the child nodes. Okay? Finally, close the node. All right? And then it is time to creating the no such location child node. Now that we have a child node capable of handling hours of operation for our particular locations, we can focus on the case in which a user provides a city detected through a sys location, but we don't have a store in that city. So, using the More Option menu in the Our Locations node, click on Add Node below to add a peer or sibling node below it. Okay? Call this node No Such Location. And add sys location as the condition. In the text response, enter. Unfortunately, we don't have a store in at this location. To date, we have stores in Toronto, Montreal, Calgary, and Vancouver. Notice that at this location will also detect our own locations. However, this node will never be executed for our own locations because it comes after our locations node. The execution of the dialog always goes top to bottom and stops at the first node for which the condition is true. This is one instance where the order of the nodes matter. If we place no such location above our locations, the very generic at this location condition would be true even for cities in which we do have a store, and therefore the execution will stop at this node, overshadowing our locations. As a general rule, when organizing your dialog, always place nodes with specific conditions at the top and ones with more generic conditions at the bottom. If you are wondering why we bother with at location at all and not just use at this location even for our own locations, revisit Lab 4 in 3 where we discussed the trade-offs of at this location. Okay, now it is time to create the location not provided child nodes. We now have two child nodes in here to handle users asking about hours of operation for specific location, whether we have a store there or not. However, we also need a child node to handle the case in which the user didn't specify a location. So you know the drill by now. Using the More Options menu for the No Such Location node, select Add Node below to create a new node. This will create a node below no such location, and hours of operation will end up with 3 child nodes in total. Call this node location not provided. Set its condition to true. Here's why. When the user asks, what are your hours of operation? The hours info intent is detected. So when the dialog is evaluated, we enter the parent node hours of location. The hour location child node is then first evaluated. We failed the condition because the user didn't specify any location. So the next child node is considered for execution. We failed that condition as well because no at this location is detected either. So we finally consider this third child node. Since the condition is set to true, it will automatically be executed. This is exactly what we want to happen since at this point, we know the user wants to know the hours of operation, but no location was provided. If we left the condition empty, we'd get an error because no child node was able to match the user request. So we need a generic answer for when no location is specified. So go ahead and reuse the message we had originally. This our hours operations are listed on its own. Okay. Click on the try button and click clear. Then try the some inputs one at a time. Okay. What are you hours of operation in Toronto? Then our Toronto store is open. Good. Then what are your hours in Calgary? Okay. Then what are your hours in Seattle? Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. What are your hours? Error message. You should see, if you see that this error message, then you need to correct it. Okay. Why? Jump to fail nodes did not match the condition of the target nodes nor any of the conditions of its subsequent siblings. So that means you need to see this here. The true. No. Okay, we missed here. True. Okay. Again. What are your hours of operation? Yes. Then our hours of operations are listed. So when you see this error message, then you need to think about here. If assistant recognizes true, then right? Not bad. Okay.